What?
What happened to you guys? What did you guys do today? How's everyone's day?
I worked.
Yeah, I went to work like a normal human.
I bought a new oven.
That's cool.
You did?
Yeah.
What kind of oven?
It's an LG 5.4 quart gas range.
Oh, nice.
Wait, no.
Is it a
holds
smart oven?
No. Okay, so they
Ooh,
actually
good question.
do. They
That's a good
actually
question.
do like.
Wait, has it got a TV in it?
Yeah, it sends emails. Or
Hey, your
Some
food's done.
emails.
Also, hey, it's smoking.
no, it's not. Sorry, not quart. It was a cubic.
I'm getting bored
Cubic
with
foot?
this.
Yeah, whatever, dude. It's a cool. It's a cool stove. I'm excited. It's a gas stove.
Oh,
Like, we
first it
have
was an oven, now it's a stove.
Well, it's a both, dude.
It's a both.
It's a
It's a
both.
both.
What'd you do with your day, Mr.
It's
Fancy
not an
Pants?
oven. It's not a stove. It's
I
a
worked.
both.
I got my hair cut. I ran some errands. Yeah, that's about it. Did some exercising.
Hell yeah, dude.
Felt good.
I
Man.
didn't do any of those things.
All right.
God, I'm a piece of
You
shit.
guys want to do this?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right after Jason says he's a piece of shit, let's do this. That way we go into this on the right note.
I like to start that way.
Hell yeah.
Here we go. Nope, just kidding.
Oh no.
You're listening to Thunderheads, a podcast for Thunder fans by Thunder fans.
Welcome to Thunderheads. If you're tuning into YouTube Live, we are psyched to have you. I am Brandon Soul, joined by the Thunder Tie himself. It is Mr. Justin Wright.
She thinks that happiness is a mat that sits on her doorway.
Matchbox 20, I know that one.
But she only sleeps when it's raining.
That I
You
saw
gonna sing
them.
the whole song? I figured you were gonna just sing the
Guys,
whole thing.
so hard not to. I saw them in concert. Not something I'm proud of. Okay, but went and saw. It's very nostalgic, right? It's especially if you're a *90s kid, which all of us are
I
'90s
like
kids.
Matchbox 20.
I don't not like them. They're not, but they're not someone's like gonna hop in your car and you're like, "You want to hear this?" You know what I mean?
Just wearing a Matchbox 20 T-shirt.
I'm hanging out with the wrong people.
But here's what I'm gonna say. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
They sounded exactly like they do on the radio. It was
Yeah.
incredible. And there's a skill to that because when a band that's biggest hits are 20 years old
Yeah.
and they still play
a
their
little
music
stale.
how it sounds, yeah, how could you play your music the exact same way that it was played on the records?
Do a lot of drugs, is most of them.
That sounds the worst. That sounds like that would not work.
Well, I mean, before and after the show.
Oh, okay.
After only.
Yeah. It would have to be after. But like that's the way their fans want to hear it, right? They want to hear the way they remember the songs and they want to be able to sing along and they did just that. So proud of them. This man over here is Jacob man.
Hey, Blake.
Hey,
Blake.
man.
Blake really likes your shirt.
Oh, thanks, man. It's
Hey, up here.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's a podcast, so you got to make sure the mic's
In the
near you.
mic.
I thought
Get up in there. Don't be
my
afraid
lapel
of it.
mic not working.
Dark and Stormy Jason Lewis is in the house.
Yes,
gotta-
sir.
No
gotta get
Rob
back
again.
here.
I think Rob is in the process of leaving us again. I think this is how it works. So just every few months, he's
I heard he's just dying of an illness, but
today. Abdul Nader's contract is guaranteed. Thunder have a full roster, guys. Half the Thunder team is playing together out in LA, so that's kind of cool. But it also tells us that we are officially in the dog days of
Oh,
summer,
yeah.
that we care about these things. We have Jeff Siegel coming on from earlybirdrights.com joining us later. Didn't work out with him last week. Hopefully it works out today. He's going to
second time's a charm.
He's
That's
covered.
what they say.
He's covered. Yeah, that is what they say. He's covered Dennis Schroeder in the past. So we're going to talk to him a lot about Dennis Schroeder. But first, let's jump into something, huh?
Get into it.
Let's kind of wrap up this offseason.
Okay.
I think most agree that it was a good. I have music playing in the background. I just realized and I just paused it. Okay. I think most agree that it was a great offseason for Sam Presti. Obviously, anytime you get Paul George to re-sign for 4 years,
When he
it's
was
a
supposed to not.
fantastic offseason. You get a free agent acquisition like Nerlens Noel. I know he's not a huge name, but it is in terms of Oklahoma City getting a young guy with potential that's shown the ability to play, come to Oklahoma City and want to contribute and honestly give up money to do so. That's
Right.
huge. So how do you grade this offseason from Presti? Because obviously with those two moves, they're great moves. But everything else, when you talk about Nader, you talk about signing Diallo, you talk about the draft, those little things, could he have done better?
I don't think so. I don't think he could have done better. I think, well, okay, so this is something that I've thought about too. I think it's important when you grade this Thunder offseason that this is kind of a part two, I feel like. It's the sequel. I think that what he did was laid the framework for this offseason, last offseason, which that's always the case, but more so this way. I feel like you have to look at both of those off seasons. I feel like last season he brought in Raymond Felton, which I mentioned first because it was arguably the biggest upgrade when you go from
Right.
literally
Samaje
Christian. Yeah.
Poor
So-
fella.
Bless him.
Do we want to do that?
I don't.
Nah, he's fine. He seems
He's
like
a good
nice-
guy. He's
nice
a great guy.
Oh,
Um,
he gets that now.
He went like 0 for 10 against the Thunder in summer league.
Yeah,
Anyways,
it's tough.
anyways.
So he brings in Felton, he brings in Patterson, which I think that again in the light of being part 2, I think we will see those dividends from Patterson pay off this season.
Sure. That's something we can get into in a little
Right.
bit.
He throws a huge dice roll on getting Paul George.
Huge.
Huge dice roll. And then he signs Carmelo. So I'm gonna be kind of like counter to what a lot of people think. I think that the Melo thing obviously failed miserably, but here's something that
On the court.
on the court. My thing is that him re-signing Carmelo. This isn't like groundbreaking, but there are a lot of people that feel this way.
Get ready for the hot take.
I'm
Right.
one of them. I believe.
Re-signing Carmelo arguably solidified Westbrook re-signing and solidified Paul George re-signing.
Right, and that's the whole thing. I mean, and that's something we talked about a lot. Like, I think all things considered, the way things happen, Westbrook re-signed, Paul George re-signed, you have to consider
Success.
the Carmelo era success. Because you
Yeah.
have to consider everything that happened that came with it. Now, yeah, it was a disappointing season, but I like the way you put it. I like the way you said that this summer is part 2.
Right.
Because it doesn't feel like an isolated summer. It's together with last summer.
Right.
Because it was a part of a bigger plan. Whereas in the past with this team, since KD's left, really, honestly, before KD's left, this team, the turnover rate has been so high, not on the court, off the court, roster construction wise. The turnover rate has been so high, so it seems like such a year by year building of the roster.
Right.
Where now it feels like
it's complete.
There's
To
now,
some-
like-
to some degree.
See, I don't know it's complete. though.
not to complete, but it's
But I think the major
most of the
like,
way there.
The
Yeah.
foundation is now
Yeah.
in place where we have something to work off of.
it feels like there's an agenda that now that Sam Presti's working off of instead of like, oh my God, we have to do this real quick.
Right.
We have to do this real quick, and now he has a plan and he's executing that plan.
He's been amazingly calm. So I like the 2-year, but I want to expand it to a 3-year. Like you lose Kevin Durant, it kind of sets up like a really brilliant story. You establish who the villain is. You establish like what you're working against. Everything for the protagonist goes
Story time.
super wrong. And then you've kind of got this expository period where you're like trying to figure the things out. And then to bring a word back from a few podcasts ago, the denouement, the third part, the
Still
third
no
act.
idea what it
Yeah,
means.
It's the
I still
it's
love
the
the way you
resolution
say it.
of the whole thing.
I'm not a
So-
strong learner.
So we're in this third act and we're seeing everything come together. The plan is in place to go at your enemy that was there from the start. So it's kind of set up as this beautiful story. And Sam Presti has kept so calm and so cool and so collected this entire time, despite losing one of the best players to ever walk the planet and play basketball.
And
And
that's
to your point, can we also point out that he, in the wake of losing Kevin Durant, what he said in his exit in the exit interviews or the, whatever you want to call those the series of interviews post departure, his whole line the whole time was, "We're not freaking out. We're not freaking out. We still know what our core values were."
Yeah.
When I heard those things,
We're like, how?
I remember, I remember thinking like, "Yeah, right, dude. You
Like
are
as soon as
freaking
he
out,
walked
dude.
out
Yeah,
off stage, he's just crying in the back, like
Your generational talent that almost got you past one of the best regular season team in the history of the NBA. He just left. You're not freaking
But I mean,
out.
that-
You are too.
that kind of is Presti though to have already had that. Like, well, if he does go, like, here's what we're gonna do.
But that's my point: is that
Like-
there are a lot of GMs that probably are freaking out, and they're literally like, "Well, cash it in, boys."
How much
Trade
of this
Westbrook."
is Presti playing the odds too? Because you lose Kevin Durant, and that's a gamble that you made by not trading him or whatever. But you lose him for nothing. Then you go into the next season with just Russell Westbrook. You get to the playoffs, you lose in 5. Then the next season you get Paul George, you get Carmelo Anthony. Doesn't really work out on the court. Nothing's working out. The officiating consistently went against the Thunder.
It really
did
did.
towards the end of the games last year.
Objectively, it really did.
Right, it did. Like, things didn't go their way a lot of times last season. It just felt like the Thunder could not catch a break, and then in the same, they lose in the first round again in 6 games, and it just feels like Paul George is out the door. And it's one of the things that I pointed to a lot last season was one of the reasons that Paul George might stay is because so many things have gone wrong for the Thunder.
Yeah.
Something has to go right.
Yeah.
And it's almost like
And he's it.
Presti was playing the odds. He was like, something has to work out for us, and this will.
Well, and can I also
Law of
say
large
too,
numbers.
something that's really you have to, I think, also really consider is when people say, was the Melo trade a mistake? Yes. Well, that was before the trade, but now here's the thing: your Melo salary was expiring. It was considered untradeable. There's a really prominent local writer around here that literally posted an article that was entitled "Why It's Unlikely, if not impossible, that Presti will be able to trade Carmelo."
Right. So
And he,
you go ahead.
yeah, just hear me because I want you to be able to flesh this out for me. My thing is that now you've got Schroeder, which, you know, we've had the players come in that people are like, I don't know. You've had the Cantor, you've had Waiters. Both of those players, I was kind of like Waiters especially. You know,
I hope you made that exact noise.
I did.
Changed a
just
little
like
bit.
that. We could cut that and use that as a.
Let's continue the
Yeah,
thought.
that's okay. That's fine. You can't win them all. They're not gonna all slam. So I just think that now you have Schroeder, who is a tradable. I think that he will excel to some degree, more so than he was in Atlanta. And I think you now have a tradable asset with him, and then you've got a development project. So now all of a sudden, the Melo trade doesn't even look. It looks even more favorable. Not favorable, but it looks even more like, oh, this could pan out because you've got Schroeder. Now you've got a guy who will come off the bench.
It ended up to being something that the Thunder hasn't had in a while.
Right. And
Dennis
it's an
Schroeder.
asset, a tradable asset, which the Thunder are.
And a thing that will continue, before it gets to you, Jason, a thing that will continue to go under the radar is you got TLC out of the deal, too.
Right. Which Presti loves, those kind of projects.
Yeah, and that's like, for me, if we're grading Presti, like, I definitely give him an A.
Yeah.
I lean towards A+, but I don't know. But because he just keeps turning over these things where you're like, there's no way that's going to happen.
just
Like,
keeps
you're
doing
just
it.
screwed. Like, if you go back and look at, like, we had a podcast where we were like, what's going to happen with PG and Melo? We had, like, 4 scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
None of those scenarios were, hey, trade Melo and get back a player that works, and you save a shit ton of money.
Didn't feel realistic.
We didn't think that was a possibility, and he just did it. And, like, yeah, maybe Schroeder doesn't pan out, but the thing, like you said, he took money that was just going to be $9 million just sitting on your books. You can't do anything with it. At least Schroeder is an active thing where even if you don't get much back from him, you can at least move him, probably.
Sure.
Like, especially if you're Presti.
But isn't that where Presti has grown? Because he might have not made some of these moves a few years ago. I think you can argue that he wouldn't have made some of these moves. But I think
As in he's, just so that I know what you're saying, you're meaning like he's been very, like, kind of just the same way that Brooks was. He's been very stick to your guns. We're going to see the process through. Trust the process.
Little bit.
Almost trust the process before it was trust the process.
a little bit, but more so to me, just conservative and wanting to build your team and your roster and your personnel outside of the team, your coaching. It was so much fit the Thunder way.
Yeah.
You know, it was,
Agreed.
and now they're saying, you know what? I think we've established that. So maybe it was all part of this plan. Maybe it worked where they said, you know what? We did establish that Thunder way, and Russell Westbrook is carrying on this Thunder way, and these other guys that have been around for a bit are carrying on. Steven Adams is carrying on this Thunder way.
Right.
Now we can bring in these guys that make Dennis Schroeder that may not fit exactly in this, but maybe we can help shape him, and if not, we can move on from him.
Well, and also, I think in one degree specifically, he has emphatically changed, and that is, and I want your opinion on this, but you guys remember in the early days of the Thunder, the early years, you know, you talk about it in business or whatever, every team has a culture. The Thunder culture was fiercely protected. So I remember literally talking and reading things and reading about potential trade candidates and things like that, and the narrative would be, oh, Presti's not going to go for that guy. There's no way. He won't have that guy with that kind of attitude. He won't have him anywhere near the Thunder.
You could argue that the narrative could have been that 2 months ago.
Well, sure, but okay. My thing is when I felt like, okay, that kind of changed was when he brought in Waiters.
Mm-hmm.
Because Waiters was coming from a very vocally unhappy situation in Cleveland pre-LeBron, where he thought he was better than Kyrie Irving. Mm-hmm. Literally, he would talk about it. He talked about it when he got here. And, you know, then you got Cantor who comes, and then you know, we find out, we were all really surprised internally that Michael Beasley was potentially going to go to the, and he said it was between the Lakers and Thunder, which means the offer was there.
It could be one of those things too, where Presti's realizing like, okay, I messed up with Durant.
Yeah.
by maybe not going after some of these guys when I could have. Maybe not to beat a dead horse, but going back to the James Harden trade, maybe trading him really doomed that whole situation for me. Right. So now I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to show these guys and Westbrook and Paul George that I will do what it takes. Right. It's like it may flop, but I'm going to at least
we're going to go out guns blazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Scared money don't make none. I mean, I feel like that is an embodiment of his mindset right now, is exactly that. I am no longer going to. And really, when you think about that statement, it's kind of a shot at ownership from earlier. I mean, I don't think he meant it that way. No. But I mean, when you think about how far into the tax we are now, and you know what it would have taken to keep Harden. Go ahead.
It's almost like you get to a culmination. We're 10 years in now. You get to this culmination of you've had some bad things happen in the past, like you've had to kind of grow up really fast. And so I think a little bit of that, shifting from a really conservative to being aggressive and going out on limbs and trying to do all this stuff with Sam Presti is a little bit of a maturation in his own job as a general manager. The team itself has matured. They're being more explorative on social media. They're being more fun and more open. They were so closed-minded. You've seen this maturation process of a really young team that's gone through a Kevin Durant situation, a James Harden situation. And at this point, they're like, look, we've been through all this. We know what we have to do in these situations. We have the leverage now, whereas before we were naive to it.
Right.
Now we know exactly what we're going in with. Paul George, he's a free agent. You've got all the tools from the Kevin Durant situation to be like, we're not going to do that again because I know how to handle the situation a lot better. So you've seen this maturation of not only the club, but also the owners, going back to what you were saying, is being able to spend the money. They've saved so much. Now they can spend because it doesn't make sense to hold on to all this. It's money. It needs to be spent on this team. The team, just as an organization as a whole, they've matured so much, and I think it's really evident this off season.
That's well said, and completely agreed.
And I think also the players, specifically Russell and the couple guys that have been around for a while, they got to learn under guys like Perk and Collison, and kind of they, like you said, they established this thing with Katie and Russ and those guys of this is how we're gonna approach every day. And we're always going to do these things the correct way. And I think now that the entire organization realizes they're all in this place together, they've all kind of gotten to this point that they can kind of, just let that happen. And they don't have to be so hey, don't say things
right.
They know that they're going to be the right people because they've been around them for this long.
And let people be people.
And yeah, exactly.
Well, and also too, when you think about it, I mean, when we talk about the early days of the Thunder, is also coincided because Sam Presti was so, his drafting prowess was so extraordinary that it coincides with also those players being really young. And so to Justin and all of your points, I
didn't want to say my name.
Yeah, well, to Justin and anyway,
this guy, blue shirt over
there, and to
Sport, call him Sport,
pal.
Damn it!
Listen, boss. To what you were saying,
knock you right out of that chair.
All right, champ. So what I'm saying is, I think it is exactly what you're saying. I mean, now they've, earlier on, I think it was really important that the organization defined the culture, because there was no culture, and especially when you move to a new city, you've got new ownership or some new ownerships. Obviously they brought most of it from Seattle. Oh yes, please. No
one's gonna know what that was.
So now you've got Adams and that's. I mean, I've been reading these excerpts from his book, and dude, the dude sounds like he's been in the league for 10 years. I mean, just a lot of just very mature, the acceptance of his role, the people that helped him, and so now so maybe the culture is just different, and Sam has stepped back and said, okay, well, now I'm going to let these play. Now we've instilled the culture. Now they're going to craft the culture.
Right. Okay. So this is great stuff. I love the off the court stuff. I love kind of dissecting what this organization has become, because it's truly fascinating, and I really want it to pay off, and I know that we all want it to pay off, but it's cool to see them grow, and I love the way you put it, Justin, because it was fun, but we really need to get back to on the court. As far as the roster goes, this team's at 15 players, guys. Abdul Nader's, like I said, at the top. His contract guaranteed yesterday.
Guaranteed.
Clearly, this team sees something in him. They like him as a player.
So weird.
15 guys. Now, we'll wait and see what happens with Singler, obviously, and that seems likely, because they usually like to have the open roster spot. What weaknesses remain on this roster?
I think the biggest thing is hopefully one of these guys sticks. Like they've got a bunch of wings, but they don't really know if any of them are going to pan out.
Yeah. Well, so basically that's the weakness.
The weakness is not knowing whether if one of these guys pans out, I think they're all right. Like it.
Yeah, but how much do they have to pan out for it to not be a weakness anymore? Like how good do they have to be?
That's a good question. I think maybe
they got to be pretty good, right?
Like they have to be able to get like 10, 15 points a game. Hopefully.
Combined. Yeah.
Like between a couple of them.
Right. Does that count Dre? That has to count Dre in there, I think.
Probably.
Yeah.
So let me be more specific. Like I think it's shooting.
I agree.
And I think it's August now. It feels like we've kind of talked about this so much during this offseason. But
that's how it goes.
Shooting is it's just not there on paper. You look at this roster top to bottom, it's like, okay, so we've got Paul George, we know we can shoot. Alex Abrinas, yeah, I mean, it's there. We just haven't seen it consistently. And then Patrick Patterson, we think it's there, but was he hurt? What was going on with him last season? Mm-hmm. Not really sure. Outside of that, who the hell is shooting the ball for you?
Yeah.
There are not a lot of good polished shooters on this team, and I think that's a worry. I think they could be there. I think some of these guys could develop into better shooters than they are right now and do something just with the ball, 15 to 25 feet out. But that's a big if.
Yeah.
And ifs are scary when you're going into a season where you're still trying to build on something. You're still you still consider yourself a championship caliber organization. If you've got a big if where it's shooting, scoring,
especially
the way you win games, that's your big if. That's a little bit scary. There's upside, but it's definitely scary.
And the only way that you're going to be able to make up for that, if that truly does turn out to be a weakness that's as big as it appears on paper right now, is if your defense is that good.
Yeah,
right.
If this defense is a top 2 defense in the league next year, then you can make up for that. Because in the playoffs, the floor does shrink. Shooting will always be important, but it becomes slightly less important in the playoffs.
Agreed.
Because you're able to kind of just counter it by just clogging the floor and you can get away with a lot more physicality.
Well, and Houston proved that point in spades.
Sure.
Where Houston's not a bad shooting team with Gordon and Chris Paul and Harden and dude, they missed 27 straight 3-pointers.
Throw in Melo now,
Yeah.
I mean
35.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I think the biggest weakness is that, to your point, I just think we have 4 guys right now that are really could make the jump and be like, man, this is the season, similar to like what Reggie Jackson did. I just think that if they don't, you're going to have to make a move at the deadline, because I think that Abrinas showed signs of making that leap. And for me, statistically, he is, if I had to guess, probably the highest probability of the guy that's going to really he started.
As far as those wings go?
Right. Well, yeah, because, he started defending well. And that was kind of the issue, is you couldn't put him on the floor because he was a sieve. People were just abusing him. And by the end of it, he started playing some really good defense.
The thing about Abrinas is, and I think that his poor defense is different than someone that is constantly out of position. He's just a step slow.
Yeah.
He knows where to be, I think.
Yeah.
I can, when you watch him, you're like, he knows where he's supposed to be. He's just
not getting there
a
quite.
little behind.
Is that better or worse?
I think it's better.
Okay.
I personally think it's better.
Because I think also his problem on offense a lot of times is he can't necessarily get shots. And so to me, with these other guys like Nader and TLC, I think one of the reasons that Presti's interested in them is because they're aggressive. They are trying, they'll try to get the ball and take it to the hole or try to score in some way. Mm-hmm. And we haven't had that with a lot of our benches in the past have been so who's going to score the thing? Well, let's just stand around, I guess, until someone does it.
And the Thunder have had frankly a lack of draft picks lately. And so maybe they're viewing this, let's stockpile these guys and say, these are basically our draft picks over the past few years. And let's see, if 2 of these guys stick, that's a win, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
That's another weakness that I think you could point to is I think this team might need one more big, because Noel hasn't played a lot.
Oh yeah, you're riding really hard on the idea that he's gonna pan out, because if he doesn't pan out, then you literally are in the exact same position as last season with Dakari Johnson.
And knock on wood, but Adams has played so many minutes over the past few years, and he's stayed pretty healthy. And so hopefully he can say the same. Patterson's aging. Those little things, you need these guys. And Grant's as versatile as it gets in the NBA when you talk about a defender, but he's not necessarily a guy you're going to throw in there if you have an injury to Adams. Now your rebounding is really suffering because that's a big part of it. So that would be what I would put as number 2 on the weakness, and that's if they were to cut and waive Singler, I think that's the position, that's the spot that they look to kind of just add to.
It could be helpful.
Well, I think it's one of those kind of like the Corey Brewer situation last year, where they kept it open the entire year until there was that need.
Yeah, right. And then that way you kind of have like a mystery box, and then it's like, well, we fill it with that.
Yeah, it's almost so. While we see the weaknesses, it feels like the organization looks at those as shooting is a want, another big man is a want. We will wait until that want becomes a need, and then we pull the trigger on it.
That's a good point, because you don't necessarily have to do it now.
Yeah,
and who knows if they're in communication with Corey Brewer saying, hey, it comes down to it, trade deadline or at the deadline where we have to pick you up for the playoffs next year and we need someone, you're at the top of our list, man.
Yeah.
So just hang tight. Right now we kind of want to sift through these young guys, see who sticks, and see if any of them are good enough, and just be upfront and honest.
And the nice thing about all this, not that they want to wait until next year or anything like that, but you don't, like we've talked about, you don't have the pressure of oh God, he's gonna leave us. We have to do something right now.
Which
and
is
so
super
if you can kind of give
overstated.
these guys time to develop, you have that breathing room a little bit.
Yeah, and I agree. Now the biggest pressure right outside of the contracts is, oh God, the age of Russell Westbrook and Paul George,
and the miles getting put on guys like Adams and Russ and all that stuff. So
that's the biggest worry now. Which I think you'd rather have that be your worry than, oh my God, just constantly being worried year after year about these contracts and who are we going to be able to keep, and oh my God, are we even going to have a team in 5 years? Oh no, what's happening?
I don't like.
So we mentioned Robertson a little bit in passing, but I think this is an interesting thing that we haven't really talked about, is the fact that he's coming off a pretty serious injury, guys.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of history to this injury in basketball either. It doesn't necessarily happen all the time. And when it has happened, it hasn't been the best for guys coming back. Now, I think Nene tore his when early in his career, and he's had a nice long career. But is this going to be something that we're going to worry about with Robertson? Are you worried about him coming back 100%, being the player that he is, because he relies a lot on his lateral quickness, his kind of just maneuvering around screens, his athletic ability, battling on the boards, those little things. Is this something we...
Yeah, I mean, it's a little scary, because I don't have reference for this happening a lot, you said, and just when you were talking about it, just flashed back in my head the way it happened, and it was just really gross.
It's freaky too, though.
And just weird. You didn't know what would happen until you watched it in slow mo, and you're like, well, that's nasty.
Right.
And so I don't know. He relies on his athleticism a lot, and but
he's also so fundamental, so it's hard to weigh it.
Because he can probably get angles on people still. But I mean, he's got if he loses a step, and he's not great defensively, is he that useful? You know what I mean?
Right.
Then can you put him on the floor?
Because the reason he is so useful is because he's so damn good at what he does.
Elite at that thing. If you drop off a little bit, it's well, does that risk reward thing work out with you anymore?
I don't think it does at all. And I really like Robertson. I've long thought that his offense was he started to really turn it around. He had a really pretty tough start, as did everyone.
Yeah, he did.
But he had a really tough start last season.
I remember last season on this podcast we were talking about, oh my God, is he going to be able to stick?
Yeah.
This offense is really struggling with him on the court.
If he's not able to get back to even, if he gets back to 85 to 90% and is showing slow improvement, I think that's great. If he's not able to get back to 70%, I don't know that he is worth having, because I think you can find guys that can do 70, 80% of what he can do, but it's that extra 20 that I think pushes him over the edge and makes him an elite defender. But man, you got a guy that, what was it, 12% from the free throw line in the playoffs where they were hacking him or whatever. It was something unbelievable that I was.
It wasn't great. I mean,
and so my thing is just if he's not a premier defender, I I mean, but I don't say that because I don't think that's gonna happen. I just, for the way he's been working out and the way they've been talking, I don't think that'll happen. But I think it will be a catastrophe if he doesn't come back and he's not healthy.
Well, that's where guys like TLC, guys like Hamidou Diallo, right. That's where those guys really matter. Like,
do you think there's something to that? Do you think that's why they added that depth? Could there be something to that?
But okay, so let me put it this way. Yes, I think they are using that as kind of an emergency thing. But I also don't think that they're putting a bunch of stock in Andre Robertson is never coming back the same.
Yeah.
Look, Russell Westbrook tore his meniscus and his MCL. And for a guy that plays as hard as he does, as explosive, who cuts as hard as he does, and he came back and he was fine.
He's better.
Right.
Yeah,
somehow
he was
freak,
better.
Though.
So
he's
a freak. He is a freak.
Andre
Robertson is an extremely athletic guy.
Sure.
He's very fit. He treats his body the right way. I'm pretty sure there are going to be guys that like team doctors that will make the rehab go the right way for him. I think he's going to come back just as strong. I think it's going to be fine.
And I think that's
like with that whole thing about the insurance in case he doesn't come back, this also lets them have the ability to wait for him to come back a little longer. Like
that's a good point.
That's a good point.
You don't have to rush him back.
Even ease him in.
We don't want to do
even
it.
ease him
exactly.
in. You know, if you want to start him just to get him used to playing with that starting unit, which I would imagine they'll do, and play him 18 minutes for a few weeks, and then kind of bump that up to 20, and then bump it up to 22.
You kind of have that leeway a little bit more, and I think that's a big deal.
That's true. I mean, you don't want to have to rely on Andre Robertson. We've talked about this a lot. You don't want to have to rely on him, period, as much as this team appears to be relying on him. And so maybe that's part of it too. But let's hope that he comes back 100%. Like you said, Justin, you know that the medical staff is going to be very cautious with him because this is a guy you're paying $10 million a year. He's not. If he doesn't come back 100%, I don't know how tradable that guy is.
Well, and that's
that's
what I meant, and that's why I was kind of like saying that I think it would be a catastrophe because then it's like, how do you move him? Because that contract is solely based upon the fact that he can out-defend his position and many other positions in the league. And if he's hurt, I mean, I don't know how you.
So I got a question for you guys to move on from the Robertson thing. Yeah, sorry. Do you have something?
Well, I was going to say, look, if it doesn't pan out, if he never comes back healthy like that, you give him a hug, you put him on that bench, you make him a coach because, damn, he's going to make a hell of a defensive coach. And if you can let him teach all those young guys how to play defense like he does, even Terrence Ferguson, you teach Terrence Ferguson to play defense like Andre Robertson can, holy crap, he becomes just incredible.
Right.
It's an expensive coach.
That's all I have.
That is. He's the highest paid coach in the league.
He was really good at one time. Player coach.
Okay, so this is an interesting question, and it's kind of coming out of the blue here, but it doesn't have to be limited to role players, but I think it will be. What player expected to play a certain amount of minutes, let's say medium to big minutes, could you see being reduced the most? So what player with kind of a perceived already shoe-in role on this team could you see really being, oh, wow, that guy's not playing as much as we thought
I'm actually going to go, so this is with the concept that Patrick Patterson is a starter. I'm going to go with him.
Yeah.
Say it doesn't work out, because last year, we've talked about this a little bit, his role got kind of scrubbed and he got moved to a position he didn't play ever. And so now him coming into this team, what if it doesn't really fit that well? And they're like, Grant needs these. Grant just fits this and it works.
What if Patterson's just not very good?
And that's possible.
I think it is possible.
I think he's going to work out well. But I just see that as a guy that I expect to get big minutes right now. And I could see him dropping off.
I agree. I think that'd be my answer.
Or if Grant's shot just starts dropping from that 20-footer from the baseline, if that starts going in all the time, then it's like, well, we can play Grant. He can hit these outside shots. He can spread the floor like we want him to, but we also get his defensive athleticism. We get a lot out of that, and Patrick Patterson, I think kind of falls by the wayside on that in that situation.
That's a good answer. I think probably the second one would be Abrines, but I don't know how much.
That's the expectation. Is it there really? I don't know.
Is there any worry that it's Adams between any of you three guys?
No.
I don't have that.
Okay.
Unless there's
just based on with the Nerlens thing.
I think it's fair.
I think we've talked about it quite a bit, but
it's a fair question because if Noel plays great and it proves to be more switchable than Adams, then wow, maybe.
We got a question from Robert Larson. How many minutes do you expect Pat to get?
I say 20.
Yeah, I was going to say 18 to 20.
That'd be off the top of my head. I say about 20 because I think Grant averages more minutes per game than Patterson.
Yeah.
Because I think that they would.
He's just more versatile. You can put him in more things.
Yep.
So my theory is that I think that if Abrinas doesn't make a noticeable jump, like skill set wise, if he's not able to bring that continuity of defense and a consistent shot, which he wasn't really able to do that last season, I think that if he doesn't do that, I think he'll be gone by the deadline.
Yeah.
And so I think
he's definitely
I see
a trade
his minutes
candidate.
Decreasing to 0.
Wow.
For the Thunder.
Billy really likes to mess with his head too, so it's
he
possible.
does. He's so
He's
shot.
like, you're sitting for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I'm
sorry.
bringing you back
What's
in
happening?
for the next seven games.
All right, now on the
starting.
flip side, what player that's expected to really not have much of a role could you see? Oh, wow, this guy's playing a lot.
All of Twitter says Burton.
Kyle Singler.
Kyle Singler?
Kyle Singler.
Get out of here.
30 minutes a game, 30.
You know what I think? I think
Gosh, damn
it
it.
could be TLC.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, was that you? Sorry.
No,
It's okay.
no. That
You're
was
allowed to have the
you
same
took-
answer.
You took my answer.
Oh,
That was-
sorry.
I wanted to say it first.
Cheating off him.
No, I think it could be TLC. I mean, secondary would be Noel. I think both of those guys. I think here's something Thunder fans, NBA fans in general, you have to remember. Think about who Grant was when he came to this team. There were so many people that are like, wait, who? I knew who he was because I play fantasy basketball. He was not a name. He wasn't a guy that was like extremely helpful. He wasn't a guy. He was a guy who played for this Sixers squad and was effective at times, but was really streaking. It was like, oh, cool.
He's a raw player.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Jeremy Grant is he will perpetually be raw.
Yeah.
That's just
100%.
who
That's not
he
changing.
is. No, he's just so raw.
But
But
think
You've
about
never
sometimes
seen
it-
a veteran that's raw.
Sometimes it works
Still
really
Jerry
well,
Grant,
though.
yeah.
But think about how it was at the end of the season. You had national beat writers and Wojnarowski or Wojnarowski. I say, dude,
I was
say his
correct
name
the first time. I
every-
don't know why.
I say his. It's not though. It's like a little bit different than that. Regardless, everyone's talking about like, man, they got to re-sign Grant. That's a huge priority. What? This dude like came out of nowhere. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just saying like,
Right.
you just forget a lot of times some of the misses like Lamb or Cameron Payne or Perry
I
Johnson.
think
like,
Lamb's going to make the jump this year.
Yeah, me too. Praying for the
My guy here
Love that guy.
Yeah.
is Felton. I could
wow.
because I don't expect him to have much, but what if it comes to a situation and these young wings they're just not playing well.
Yeah.
Billy is absolutely going to throw Felton out there and be like, I only trust you.
I believe
Interesting.
That's what would happen, right?
I believe it.
For me, it's got to be either TLC or Nader. Actually, just
Interesting.
Two guys that mostly because they've been in the NBA, they've had those meaningful minutes, and I think fans are going to look at them as being outside guys. Like, well, we've already got Ferguson, we've already got Abrinas. We don't need to really think about those guys, and so they're already writing them off in their minds.
Right.
And so yeah, I think TLC is a step and a half above who Nader is, but I think both those guys could bring a lot to the table that people just aren't sure of yet.
Right. And it's kind of my thing with those guys, like I said earlier, is I feel like we haven't had a lot of bench guys that just like go and try stuff. And I feel like they're going to be aggressive. And I think that's what Sam's looking for, is somebody like, we just need somebody to try to.
Did we talk about this? That like, are we worried that now Billy has too much to play with?
Yeah, we did. That was the discussion that we, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's on here, but
I don't either. I never remember.
like he maybe has too many Tinker Toys.
Yeah.
Well, can I just say two
Tinker Toys,
things
name of
to your
podcast.
point? I like it. I like it. To your point, well, one, I think there are a lot for my reasoning behind TLC is that there are the indicators in his other stats, and then also in his is limited, but there is history that he's a good shooter, but he has not had the opportunity to get into rhythm. His free throws.
TLC?
Yes.
I would argue against that.
Oh, really?
I think that he's had plenty of opportunity in Philly. I think that he's a guy that's actually played decently consistent minutes at times there. I mean, he's played, 56 games, somewhere around there, each of the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, he falls out of the rotation sometimes, but when he does play, he plays decent minutes.
Well, firstly, I resent you for disagreeing with me.
No, that's...
It was personal. I could tell.
It felt personal.
that exact reason...
Did you feel that? I felt it.
the
It's like
reason
butter.
the reason I say that is because when they first traded for him, I didn't see him being as a rotational player on this team.
Yeah.
But now, the more I'm looking at his stats, the more I'm looking at his experience, I'm slowly starting to say, I think this guy plays. I think is the 10th guy. I think he's the number 10 guy.
I like.
Well, and when you just look at his free throw shooting, which a lot of times those correlate to people that maybe are just not being used correctly. What is it? He's like in the 90s, isn't it? It's like
he's like
insanely-
85.
Yeah,
He's
it's like
a good
really,
free throw
really
shooter.
great.
Better than the entire team.
The other thing I would just like to say to any Thunder fans listening or just in the world that are banking on either Abrinas or Ferguson, I think it's dangerous because I think Ferguson has a way higher upside just due to age and the fact that he got thrown in.
He can jump so high,
He can jump extremely high. He can.
Plus,
jump
did you see the videos
hella
lately?
high. Yeah, dude,
He hasn't missed.
He hasn't missed a single basket.
It's so good.
A bucket.
He just throwing it in, man.
Yeah,
He
that's how
just
you do
throwing
it.
it in. My point is just that I don't know. I don't know that right now you can shoe either of those guys in. I don't think that you have the kind of when Adams was here the first season, we knew okay, this guy's for real. I want to think that about Ferguson, and I feel
Dude,
like
he's
it could
20.
No, I know, and I'm not saying that it won't, but I'm saying I'm not.
I
if I'm a
understand
betting man, I'm not saying like, man, good thing we have our two building blocks in Abrina. We have two really enticing projects, and I believe, like I said, I believe in Ferguson more maybe than Abrinas, just because Abrinas has had the chance.
I don't want to hang on this too much, but I just tend to think that Ferguson is less of a project and more of just a guy that will continuously grow. I think he's never going to be a guy that's one of your best 5 players. He's just going to be a guy that is a solid role player. I think you already see his defensive capabilities last year. Like, he has good feet, he has good length, he's definitely lacking strength, but I think he had bad on-off numbers last year when he played with the team, when he played with the starters. The numbers were not good in lineups he was in, but I don't think you can pin all of that on him.
Can I say, too, before we move on, I know we got to move on, I want to say, too, I have a source. My baby's first source, someone extremely, just someone who knows Ferguson very well, extremely close. They talk day to day, and I had a conversation with this individual recently, and we were talking about his offseason, and they said the number one goal for us was for him to put on weight because he was just not defensively able to do the things, which resonates. But it's kind of encouraging to know sometimes the things that we see are also things that play,
some things are obvious.
Yeah, sometimes things are obvious, but sometimes you think it's obvious, like with Carmelo Anthony, and it's just a totally different mindset. She said, okay, well, I just gave away the gender.
Wow.
So that eliminates half of the candidates.
She told me that he's put on significant muscle.
He's
put on a lot of muscle.
That's what happens when you get older, too.
Yeah.
Just kind of happens.
She said he's getting
food,
fat. She said, man, Ferg's fat right now.
All right, we need to call Jeff.
I'm calling him.
Call him. We're
Here we go.
gonna talk to him about Dennis Schroeder. We wanted to lead into this. You can go ahead and call him. I'll just keep talking.
Do it.
We wanted to.
Yeah.
Fresh.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff.
What's going on?
We're live.
All right. How you guys
Just in
doing?
it.
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
Hopefully this goes better than last time. We had some technical difficulties last time. If you're not familiar, you can read his stuff on Peachtree Hoops over at SB Nation. He founded earlybirdrights.com. It is my go-to salary cap site. I promise you. Go to it. He updates it like so quick. Everything's laid out, easy to read. Definitely check it out, earlybirdrights.com. This is Jeff Siegel. Jeff, let's just start here. Why the hell were the Hawks looking to trade Schroeder so badly? Like, what number one reason?
Number one reason, probably the fact that he decided not to play defense the last couple of years, during the regular season at least. And obviously, that's not great from your starting point guard who you just gave $70 million to. So that's, I think that was the biggest reason. And obviously they were targeting a rebuild, and they wanted to get that kicked off. And the best way to do that is to, trade one of your, he still was one of their better players, even if he decided that defense was optional.
When did he decide to stop playing defense?
As soon as he got the starting gig, apparently. In 2016, they traded Jeff Teague for the 12th pick that became Taurean Prince. That was a great trade for the Hawks. And then they gave the reins to Schroeder before he ever even got on the floor in the 2016 season. They gave him that 4-year, $70 million extension, and he immediately stopped playing defense. So that was it.
Do you think that was more of like his workload, because he's kind of the only, like one of the few guys on the team that can get his own buckets? Is that kind of what maybe contributed to that, or is it just he kind of gave up on it and didn't feel like it was his job?
I think it was probably a little bit of both. I mean, certainly playing, going from a backup role to a starting role, you would think, there is going to be some sort of redistribution of your energy level between offense and defense, especially as a point guard. And so it's not, it certainly doesn't make him, completely invaluable because he decided to stop playing defense. It was really more that he got the starting job. He got sort of what he wanted in the fight for the Hawks' future with Dennis Schroeder. But then in 2016, we have to remember that the Hawks weren't in tank mode. They had just brought in Dwight Howard. Paul Millsap was still on the team. Kent Bazemore, who's still on the team, was at the height of his powers. And it wasn't necessarily that Schroeder was the be-all, end-all offensively, that he couldn't possibly play defense. He just kind of chose not to until the 2017 playoffs, when he did ramp it up considerably against John Wall in the first round. The Hawks still lost, but Schroeder played Wall toe-to-toe in that series, and then played for Germany in Eurobasket in the summer of 2017. Played well there on both ends of the floor, but it was really the inconsistent level of effort during the regular season, during the day-to-day sort of during the day-to-day game in, game out of the regular season the last 2 years, where he just decided that he was either above it or he didn't want to do it. Whatever it was that made him sort of relax basically on the defensive end, it certainly put a large chasm in his value for the Hawks.
Great. Jeff, Jacob Mann, Thunderheads. Let me ask you this. We've seen a lot from Hawks fans and from writers about, his attitude. Schroeder has a bad attitude. We're familiar. We had a situation with Reggie Jackson. There's a lot of parallels in some ways, and it's different in others. But, we know that he wasn't satisfied with his role off the bench. But other than being just like really vocal about that and not being super happy about just the way that the organization wanted to move forward, are there specific things attitude-wise that are indicators as to why he kind of has this reputation as being, a problem in the locker room?
I wouldn't say that he is a problem in the locker room. Having covered the team for his whole career essentially, and not, I've never gotten the feeling that his teammates don't like him or that he's, a problem for his teammates. He does sort of, because he doesn't try on defense as often as he probably should. The coaching staff doesn't love that, but of course they still, they still stick with him, and they still, see his value, on the offensive end, especially as a driver and finisher. So it's not, I wouldn't say that he's bad in the locker room by any means. And I wouldn't say that the comparison to Reggie Jackson, certainly in terms of how they're going to back up Russell Westbrook, how they're sort of, they have very similar games in terms of being drivers, not really shooters, not, score first rather than pass first. It does sort of lend itself to a nice comparison there. But I think the biggest thing that we have to remember is that Reggie Jackson was looking to get paid, and Dennis Schroeder already got paid. This is probably going to be the biggest contract of his career. And maybe by the end of the contract, by the end of this current contract, he'll, there's still 3 years left on that extension. Maybe by the last year, he'll start trying to push and trying to up his value ahead of free agency. But for now, I think it's going to be a really good acquisition for Oklahoma City. As bad as he was, defensively and not really taking those steps forward that you would want to see from him on either end of the floor during this sort of down spell for the Hawks. He's a competitive guy. He wants to win. He's going to immediately step into a situation that was just like, as he was a backup in 2015 when the Hawks won 60 games, and he was a terror defensively. So I think that's what we're going to see from him, which is it's going to make it really interesting for those of us who sort of analyze the trade, after next season or the season after that. If Schroeder really turns it around, then it's going to be a great trade for Oklahoma City. If he's, if that defensive effort is really gone, or if he just can't do it anymore, that would surprise me certainly at 24, 25 years old, if he just really couldn't play defense anymore. But I think he'll, personally, I do think he'll be fine.
Jeff, I'm interested in back when Teague was still with Atlanta. How often did they put both Schroeder and Teague on the court together? And if they did, and when they did, was it successful? Did they work together well?
Yeah, I thought they worked together well, but the biggest thing was I think two big things. If you're looking at the defensive side of the ball, Schroeder is like 6 foot, maybe 6'1", so that wouldn't really lend itself to being a strong defensive combination. But he's got like a 6'8", maybe 6'9" wingspan, so he can bump up a position, guard twos. That obviously won't be much of an issue with Russell Westbrook, because Westbrook is big enough to guard twos as well. So the two of them can both guard positions. I think and offensively, Schroeder's never been able to shoot the ball from 3-point land. It's never been something that he's been good at. He was 28% last year. He's better as a spot-up guy. If you just sort of stick him in the corner, he can sort of make that shot. He just takes a lot of bad shots off the dribble because teams go under screens, and that's the shot that's available to him. So that sort of dampened his overall percentage, over the last few years. But, the combination between him and Westbrook is going to be tough offensively, just because neither guy is a high-end 3-point shooter. And if you're having, for the Thunder, you have a guy like Steven Adams out there as well. That's another guy who can't shoot the three. So it's going to be a treacherous thing to play both of them together, I think.
So he's basically just like a miniature, not as good Russell Westbrook, is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. He's pretty much the same kind of guy. He doesn't have the athleticism. He's a little bit smaller. He's not as good at anything, I wouldn't say. But that's what you want out of a backup point guard. Right, I mean, It's not you're not going to get a backup point guard who's all of a sudden going to be better than Russell Westbrook. That's really even on that level. So, Schroeder will come in and play 20 minutes a game, maybe 18 minutes a game, and those are going to be minutes that won't go on Westbrook's body. And as he ages through his contract, I think that's going to be the biggest positive that Schroeder brings. Just a capable backup point guard means that Westbrook doesn't have to play 35 minutes a night. Cut that back to 31, and all of a sudden you really have something.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And honestly, that's kind of what we were hoping. I have another question too. You've talked about seeing some of the things regress in his game over the years. Are there some things that you've seen that you saw improvement in over the years? Things that maybe when he was first started to get significant minutes, he was able to kind of smooth the rough edges off towards the end of his tenure with the Hawks?
I mean, I guess he's gotten better as a playmaker. It hasn't been very good. Like, it hasn't been the step forward that I would have wanted from him. It's not necessarily that he's bad. Well, he's below average in that area, and that's a big thing that when you're comparing, Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder, Westbrook is 8 times the passer that Schroeder is. He doesn't see the floor the same way that you would really want out of a point guard. And of course, Westbrook gets a lot of flack for being a score-first point guard, but then, he's also one of the better passers in the league, and Schroeder's definitely not that. But he has, it has improved over the years. I think, certainly during that 2016 season when he was playing, a ton of pick and roll with Dwight Howard, a ton of pick and pop with Paul Millsap and even Mike Muscala. He got a lot of reps in that sort of high pick and roll scheme that frankly that the Thunder will run him out in a lot of stuff with Steven Adams perhaps or some of their other players. So it's not, I think that's the biggest place that I think we've seen him sort of take a step forward. Obviously, he's taken athletic steps forward as a as a driver, as a finisher. He's one of the best drivers in the league. He can pretty much go past anybody, certainly even in practice. If they're going hard at each other, Schroeder's going to give Westbrook some trouble in terms of just pure top-end speed and acceleration. So he's always been good at that, and he certainly has improved on his finishing around the basket, and his playmaking has gotten a little bit better. And, if his defense – if the effort comes back on the defensive end, he's going to be smarter. He's going to be sort of more experienced, and so I would expect that if he brings the effort that he should bring next year, that'll be the best defensive year of his career.
Jeff, if they're gonna play Schroeder and Russ together, which I imagine they're gonna have to try. If you make a trade like this, they've already spoke about it. They spoke with Schroeder. They told him they want him to be the sixth man. They're going to roll out lineups where they play Russ and Schroeder together. They're going to give it a go. Is Schroeder a guy that's going to be able to play off the ball, maybe play off the catch and attack off the catch? And is he going to be able to provide spacing in that way, maybe that kind of counters his lack of shooting ability?
I mean, I think that would be a good way to use him. It's really whether you can get through to him and say, just because you're open doesn't mean you have to take that shot. if they're kicking the ball to him on the left wing after Westbrook drives the other side of the floor, it doesn't mean that he's open for a reason. And, if he starts to make some of those shots, he's not awful as a spot up shooter. He's frankly is much better than his 28% you would think based on that percentage, because he takes a lot of bad shots off the dribble that you just sort of have to take on a bad team with not a whole lot of options around you. But he's nobody's going to guard him at the beginning of the season, and if he shows he can do it, then teams will start to respect him. And it's going to be about getting through to him that, hey, you need to, when you catch, we're trying to get you to drive to the basket, and if people aren't guarding you, you can take some of those shots, but you're really more of a driver, and so I think that'll be a big part of his value as a spot up guy, is really more as a especially as you see, you see a guy like Jason Tatum, and obviously those two guys are very different players. But when another Celtic drives and then kicks to Tatum, Tatum runs into the catch in a way a lot of guys don't. And he's got a full head of steam going toward the basket before the ball gets there. And if they can sort of tell Schroeder watch that, to watch that kind of film and to sort of integrate that as part of his game, once he's at full speed, nobody can stay in front of him. If he can get into full speed before having to take a dribble, and running into the catch, he's going to be, a real terror as a driver in spot up situations.
So Jeff, obviously here in Oklahoma, we got to see a lot of number 11 Trae Young. What are your thoughts and feelings on Trae Young coming into Atlanta?
I certainly wouldn't have done the trade they did to get rid of Doncic. I think I had Doncic above Young in my board, like, pretty significantly, but obviously Travis Schlenk had those two guys in the same tier. He said as much after the draft that they thought those guys were pretty much equals, which and then they got they picked up another first round pick next year. It may work out, it may not. I think Trae Young is already a good playmaker. I was talking about this with somebody else. To go back and look through the history of Hawks point guards, you have to go back maybe before I was born in the early 90s to get a playmaker at the point guard position for the Hawks who's as good as. Yeah, you may really have to go back that far to get a point guard who was better as a playmaker, as a pure passer, as Trae Young. And I think that's the big reason that they chose him. That's the big reason that they've said they chose him in interviews in the interim since the draft. Obviously, if you're really interested in taking the best passer, then you already took him and then you traded him away for a lesser passer. But they obviously think that Young can be a transcendent passer the way Doncic almost certainly will be. And if Young can get a little bit stronger or a little bit quicker or tighten up his handle a little bit, then he'll be able to get up those shots that he was able to get up at Oklahoma, the stuff that he sort of struggled with a little bit in Utah Summer League, and then turned the corner a little bit in Las Vegas. So I think he's and he's never going to be a good defender. So it's really all about the offense for him. If he can be a transcendent scorer and passer, then he's going to be an all-star. And if he can't, then he's still always going to have that passing, I think.
So basically what you're saying is Atlanta really loves University of Oklahoma point guards, from Mookie to Trae Young now. How about the fan base? What's the pulse of the fan base? Are they excited about the Trae Young era? Are they excited about trying to build around Trae Young? Or do you get the sense that Doncic was the guy and the fans are a little bit disappointed about it?
For the fans, I think Trae Young is the guy only because a lot of people in Atlanta saw Young play on ESPN twice a week for the last year and have fell in love with the way he can score and he can pass. Whereas Doncic, if you saw 10 minutes of highlights, you probably saw more than 95% of the people who live in Atlanta, or frankly, 95% of the people who live in the United States. It's it's a lot harder to get film and to get real analysis on guys coming from overseas as a fan, because you really have to go out of your way for it. Whereas, with a guy at Oklahoma who was on ESPN all the time, you just flick on ESPN, SportsCenter, or during the games, and you can watch Trae Young. So I think a lot of the Atlanta fan base certainly is very happy with Trae Young. Is very happy with some of the other young guys that they've got, John Collins, even a guy like Kevin Huerter or Omari Spellman. Those guys are going to be, offense first players who fans tend to overrate. So I think those, I think the fans have to be, pretty excited about the way that the process, for lack of a better term, is sort of going here as the Hawks really sort of turn into what the Philadelphia 76ers were a few years ago.
Jeff, before we let you go, I need a prediction on wins from Atlanta next year.
23. That's
okay.
Not very many, but I think they're probably going to be worse than last year. Because they're going to give the reins to Trae Young.
Who's their best player?
Kent Bazemore. He was last year, and he'll be again this year. He's the diametric opposite of Dennis Schroeder. And I could talk about Kent Bazemore all day because he's one of my favorite guys in the league. But he was the guy who saw the team sort of get worse around him and decided, I'm going to step up and be this team's best player. I'm going to lead the locker room. I'm going to add new skills to my game at age 27, 28. And he became a legitimate secondary playmaker last year in a way that he was never that way before. I mean, when he came into the league, he could barely dribble at the NBA level. And now he ran a bunch of pick and rolls last year, kept up the defensive effort, shot really well from the 3-point line. He was their best player last year. He's going to be their best player again.
You can find his stuff at earlybirdrights.com or Peachtree Hoops of SB Nation. Thanks so much, Jeff, for joining us. We appreciate you. Good stuff, man.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.
All right, guys. Way to say "see ya" at the end. That was the most.
See ya.
You're like a foot away from the mic too.
He's a year younger than I am.
Oh,
that's weird. Did you just deep dive? Did you just go creeping as we were talking?
I looked at his LinkedIn because I'm also a young professional.
Very good. Did you add him as a connection?
I did not.
Oh, you should have. That would.
I don't have it. I'm not signed in on my computer, just on my phone.
Let's do some social media inquiries.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Social media inquiries.
Woo! All right. What did you guys think about that interview, by the way?
Oh, I loved it.
Very good.
That guy's a stud. I like that guy.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. It was different from the first time.
Yeah.
I think
it was nicely different.
If you saw the first time live, it was definitely different. But man, he's a really knowledgeable guy and fun to talk to.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised. He said Bazemore, and as their best player. And to be honest, I don't watch a lot of Hawks ball, but I kind of had, and I wanted to ask him about this, but we were already going way long, so naturally I'll just vent on it now. But I thought Bazemore's been a guy that they've been kind of disappointed in because he signed
that's kind of the vibe I got.
He signed such a big contract, but I guess I'm very wrong.
Well,
on
and he's
that.
been involved in a lot of trade rumors too, like a
Sure.
lot.
Yeah,
like almost they thought maybe he was a potential target for the Thunder.
Right.
What was the last one?
Houston.
There was
Houston's
yeah.
talked about him a little. Yeah.
Let's get to these.
All right, from Alex Roy at Alex Roy.
Oh, by the way,
_NTTB.
By the way, we're giving away Steven Adams' new book to our favorite question. So make him good.
It'll take you a bit to get it though, because we're gonna give you the physical one.
Little two-parter. Part 1. This is unethical, but also hypothetical. What if two world-renowned authors were allowed to follow Russ and KD for 2 years, starting July 4th, 2016, and ending after the Team USA camp a couple of days ago? Here's the kicker. Each author gave their player truth serum every night. Let me continue this.
Next.
On the next page.
Next slide.
Yeah, the next slide. As I pull it, because I did not do this the right way.
That's okay. You're a young professional. You're getting better.
After the serum was administered, the author would ask them about the events of that day and how they felt. Eventually, these would become autobiographical books about the past 2 years.
Did this guy submit a novel?
Whose truth serum-induced book would you read if you could only choose one, and why?
Between KD or Russ?
Between KD and Russ.
So basically,
ghost-written autobiography of the last 2 years, basically.
Russell Westbrook, hands down.
So
KD already says everything his bitch ass thinks, dude.
Well, so that's a good answer, but I feel like we all know.
There's two answers here.
I feel like we already know how Russ feels, though, because it's pretty much.
But
evident.
I don't, though. I don't know what he
I
thinks.
kind of feel like that if we got Russ's, he would be a little underwhelming in the things you'd read. You'd be diving in, hoping to get some juicy nuggets,
get it.
and you'd come to find out actually Russ is pretty chill, and he says, you know what, screw it, whatever, it's life.
He probably got over it.
Okay,
However,
but
if you go into
statistically-
KD's, it'd be all over the map, baby.
Oh
It'd
my-
just
But
be insecurity leading into.
We already have the truth serum with his burner accounts. That's as close to truth serum as you get.
Good point.
But see, you never know which one's true because apparently the whole time he was here was phony, and now it's the real him. But then you would really get the real him.
I want to know
which is
though,
probably
what does
more
Westbrook
of a bitch.
think though? Like, I want to know what he thinks. Like, I would love
he
to
thinks
hear.
he's a bitch, dude.
What?
Of course he does.
Yeah.
But I
We
want to
all
know, like,
do.
well, I mean, there are things like that I would want to know. Like, did he really not text anyone? Did he really not tell anyone? Like,
No, that's-
what was their relationship like when they were here?
I
like,
think that's been confirmed. He didn't text anyone.
bad example. Then I just mean like,
I guess you need better examples
gotta
to
get
support your
You gotta get better
your
sources.
choice. Next.
get better examples.
I'll-
I don't
Good
know.
question though. It was long, but it was a good question.
It was a good
It was cool.
Creative. I like
made you
creative.
think.
Same.
That's always a good thing. Where did my? I just clicked
Oh,
on the
Jesus.
thing.
Oh no.
There.
What a
it's
disaster.
That's whatever. Here we go.
This
Here
is
we
a good
go.
part of this
Let's-
podcast.
well, yeah, exactly. From Leon Fowler II at LA Fowler 255. Which Thunder player would you want to expound on what Steven Adams said about Reggie Jackson in his book? So obviously they had to be part of that team. And what do you think he would say?
Ooh,
That's a good question. This is tough.
that is hard.
My first instinct is Perk.
Oh, God,
yeah.
that would be so good.
Perk would be real about
would
it.
destroy
Exactly.
him.
So I think that's the way. And I think that he would say, you know, he was being a little bitch, and we just had to get him up out of here. It'd be something like that.
Just carry him out ourselves.
Is Perk in here?
Yeah, was out dead on or
That
what?
was nice.
Oh my gosh.
This
It
would
would,
work.
it would be really interesting if it was Surge and it was written in both Spanish and French, but not English. So you had to know Spanish or French to read it.
Get an
Be
interpreter.
such a trilingual thing to do.
Oh, well, that's just typical trilingual.
I think I'd like to hear it
Sons
from.
of bitches.
I'd like to hear from Westbrook. I mean, he's the dude, the direct inline dude.
Again,
that-
I feel
that-
like he said what he thought already.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's like, we'll see him again next year.
I
I'm
feel like
okay,
Westbrook-
but what do you think about him? Like, tell me.
I feel like Westbrook is so simple-minded in a good way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
where he doesn't let things get to him too much. He's just like, you know what, it is what it is, and I'm gonna keep moving on. And that's a quality that we should all learn.
Unless it's a young point guard that's trying to get under his skin during a game.
That's true.
Let's that get to him.
Good
Okay,
point.
but
that's
my whole
competition
thing-
though. Different ball games.
And also, in my mind, the truth serum gets past all that. Like, you're like getting the deep dark,
I
like,
got truth serum on
you
this
know,
one.
I got.
That was
Good
already
point.
used up.
That's a good point.
We're out of truth serum.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Forget it, dude. It's a good podcast, guys.
From Ryan Combs at R. Combsy, if you could have one tweet to try and get KD to respond, what would it be?
This is so hard.
Mainly because you have to try to get him to respond to you.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you have to do something that's going to get under his skin, right?
it's probably not
Or-
that hard. It's probably not as hard as you're
Right.
making it out. to
Yeah,
be.
that's
you
true.
probably just have to say, hey,
And
why
also,
is such
he
a bitch?
may have already. You don't really know.
That's
That's
He may have
also
already.
that's a great
Dude,
point.
over under on KD having maybe possibly interacted with the Thunderheads Twitter account at
Over.
some point.
I'm going over on any.
That wasn't a well put question, but I understand what you
confused
meant.
by
I don't really know what
Over.
over under means, so I just full disclosure.
That's a good question too. Next.
Dear Slim Reaper, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. I left my cell, my pager, and my home phone at the bottom.
No.
I like it.
He'd be like, man, he'd see right through that.
That's a great song.
I've
though.
heard that
A
song.
really sad song. It is a very sad, awful
I
song.
might say something about just like, where do you think your insecurities root from?
Like maybe get real with him,
Yeah,
like super
yeah.
deep, and he's
Yeah.
just like,
Just go psychologist on his
Yeah,
ass.
exactly.
and then he just exposes all.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you. I think you have to like figure out some way to like really not don't do the whole like oh man he's such an idiot like what you gotta like hit him at that deep thing of like man what how does it feel to wake up every day knowing that you let an entire state of people just like down in
That's
the
true.
worst
That might
way?
work.
That's a good one.
That might work. That might work.
From Drew _ at Drew _ 611. If
got
you
underscore
could be,
underscore in his name.
if you could be in the room for any decision the Thunder made, which one would it be?
Harden trade,
Come
everyone.
on.
Has to be the Harden trade.
Everyone.
Has to be.
That's so sad.
No offense to the
I think maybe
I mean,
drafting.
that was kind of offensive.
What about drafting Kevin Hervey at 57?
No, don't really care about it.
Okay,
to be a fly on that wall. I tell you what.
just because I want to be different, drafting Russell Westbrook.
Ooh,
Yeah, because it was
that'd
an
be fun.
unpopular pick at that
Yeah.
It
point.
was. I like
'Cause
that answer
that's
a
just
lot.
kind of it was really out there, and at the time I was like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you're trying to build around Kevin Durant. Why would you get Russell Westbrook? Dude didn't even start, and then Scotty Brooks comes along, and all of a sudden he's the face of our
Another
franchise.
Scott Brooks
Another good one.
Just starting perk the entire time during the finals when you were losing.
Another good one would be oh man, I had something. The Paul George trade.
Oh yeah, that was
Just being there for that one and just kind of seeing how fast it moved.
because of like how that Denver Cleveland whole trade almost happened, and then
Right.
that went through, and then just like do it.
Yeah.
Option C might be the Kyle Singler extension.
No,
I'd really like to be in the
I
room.
want to know why.
I'd really like to know
Next.
what that was about.
From Connor Kelly at CKelly0. Do you guys want to keep the City Unis from last year?
No.
Or get something new?
No.
And if so, what would you like to see?
Anything else?
He's heard rumors of them doing something around the Oklahoma City bombing, similar to what the Knicks jerseys did, like they did the FDNY jersey,
Yeah.
which I thought were really cool.
They
Yeah,
were
they-
really cool.
they were really
They
cool.
were one of the best City jerseys last year.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the ideas from last year that they were thinking on. Seemed like they were maybe a little conservative on. You had found some like native jersey. You found that?
I did, and
I bet.
I'll.
You did.
You
Wow,
know
you
what?
really
Actually,
threw that one out
no.
there.
Well, here it is, and we'll just. I'll call it out. And actually, some circumstances have changed, so I can kind of like be more forthcoming. But you heard it here first. I got this directly from Clay Bennett's email. Someone I know.
We're about to get that cease and desist.
Shit.
No, well, no. I mean, all
very
I'm gonna
nervous
say,
all of a sudden. I did not
didn't
know
get
that's
it.
how.
I didn't get it from his email. I got it from someone who got the
Okay.
email from him.
So you just know.
And I'm sure he sent it to more than one person. So, there's a tribute jersey. I've seen it. It looks really, really cool. I think you were like not sure about it, right?
the
You were-
font looks weird in the picture.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't. This is bad conversation for this thing
Yes,
because no
sure.
one can actually see what we're
Right,
talking
right,
about.
right, right.
But yeah, it was a tribute to the Native American background of what
Right.
Oklahoma is, and that was the idea.
Which I think would be
which
cool.
is a cool idea. I think the bombing thing is a really cool idea.
I like the
I think
bombing
I think
idea a
the
lot.
I think the idea what they tried to do with the city jerseys last year is
It was
decent. It was
almost
just
there, but it
poorly,
was poorly
poorly
executed.
So, look, if you're going to do a bombing one, I think you wait 2 years and you do it in 2020 for the
On an
25th
anniversary.
anniversary.
It's not a bad idea.
And that would be, I think that would
Yeah.
be a really cool tribute.
That's the move
if you're
there.
ever going to do it, you do it that way and not,
Honestly,
don't do it now.
okay, if they would have done the city jerseys last year with the same grayscale and everything, maybe eliminate the side stripes or whatever.
Eliminate that
But-
gold damn outlining of the things.
Well, what if you would have just done the exact same jersey,
Right.
but you would have done the OKC in the same style as the Sunset jerseys were? But
a
with
little boring, but I'd take it over.
It'd be boring, but
I'd take it over what it was.
I think it could be kind of
100%.
Cool. Right.
This is a whole other podcast, but I mean, I think the Thunder probably are in need of a rebrand at some point.
Oh,
in the
that's
next
100%
3.
true.
But
I
we
think
can talk about that later. But I just think,
Sure.
The whole
all in
world-
all, really, the reasons that we don't really love all of this is that there's just not really a super solid foundation to build on. So I love the
Agreed.
question though, and I think the bombing, that to me, like, that's a really awesome way.
Wait for the 25 year.
Next.
From Arc at OKC United 17, if you were to get into a fight, who would you want to defend you out of the following? 1, Terrence Ferguson. 2, Kyle Singler. 3, Thick Daddy Ray Ray. Or 4, Senor Brines.
I think
feel
we
like
can
that's-
all agree Ferguson's last on that list. I'm sorry.
Number 3 is obviously the best choice, Thick Daddy Ray Ray.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's got the lowest center of gravity. He's gonna be hard
Probably
to
got
knock
dad
down.
strength. I don't know if he's actually a dad, but he just really looks like
Wait,
one.
He looks like his head is strong, you know, like his neck is strong. Like you're not gonna be able
He
to.
just beat somebody.
Dude, I'm gonna
with
throw out.
headbutts.
I'm gonna throw out an answer. You guys aren't gonna like
You're
it.
gonna
I'm
go
just-
Singler. aren't
I'm
you?
gonna go Singler, and here's why.
Samurai.
Singler, 2 things. 1, crazy beats big every time, and second, dude, Singler. Think about kind of like Singler's body type, and think about the dudes he's banging with in the low post every night, dude. Like, I'm just saying, like. That guy's having to like really compensate for lack of size or whatever.
I don't know karate, but I
that's-
know crazy, and I will use it. What's that from? There's
Hey,
a
Arnold?
reference for you. No,
Ace Ventura?
no.
God
Okay,
damn.
let's carry on. Shanghai Noon.
Oh, should have known. That's like your
That's so
the
good.
only movie
so
you've ever
good.
seen.
Haven't
So
seen
good. I
That
watch
is
it
a
every
really
day.
good. I'm a Shanghai Nights guy myself.
it. From,
Also good.
From Federian Owainarowski at Jax_Rowe. Whose hair would you most like to smell, or would you like to smell the most in the league?
Easy. John Wall in his latest USA basketball
Oh,
picture. What's
just
he been
to
doing?
see what it is.
Yeah, what's he been doing? You know,
It could be rough.
like he could have somersaulted all the way there from whatever room he was staying in.
I
That's
don't
what
wanna
it seems like.
Smell anyone's hair ever.
Oh, I don't mind smelling people's hair.
I'm a big hair smeller.
You just go up to him. I like it.
It's a like beard thing, but James Harden's beard.
Do you think Russ's hair smells like basketballs?
Like it's just ingrained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably smells like
I can't
anger.
see why not.
What about the Paul
smells like
George?
anger.
The Paul George last year hair. When it kind of got.
I like that. I feel like he definitely had to put some product in that thing, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't really know what you have to
he
do to
had to put
maintain an
product in
afro.
I don't either. You've had one before.
Yeah, I mean, I can have an afro, but I don't have to.
You don't have to maintain them.
No, I do, but I just feel like the product might be different. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna find this out.
From Kiefer Puke emoji, I follow back at Petty Russ West. Do you believe Andre Robertson is the biggest key to beating the Warriors this upcoming season? If so, why? Also, do you believe OKC's first 5 off the bench will be more effective / better than the Kings and Hawks starters?
I like that second question. The first question,
Yes.
Robertson, the most important? I don't think so.
No, I don't.
Not
think
Yes.
the
so
most
either.
important.
Yes.
But the second question might have a case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have a case.
I think if what people think and what we think is accurate, which is that Patterson will start, I think definitely. I think you'll see Noah. I'm a big. This is one of those things where I'm gonna make a stand. I'm a big guy. I think that Noel's gonna make a
big
jump.
guy.
I'm a huge guy. I'm a huge guy.
Here's where this play on the other side of things. The wing position. We talked about it this podcast. Abrinas,
We ain't
Ferguson.
got that.
It's weak. So when you look at the Kings, you at least have Buddy Hield, Bogdanovich. You have these guys that can shoot
Bog
the
is-
ball.
yeah, Bog's
so that's where I'd be a little apprehensive. Too.
Oh man, both those teams have Sooners on a Boomer Center.
Oh god damn it.
Damn it!
You're
Don't
welcome.
do that.
Next.
I'm always gonna do that. Sorry, I'm proud of where I went to school.
That's fine.
He went to
Gonna
school
do
there,
that.
guys.
This is not the time nor place.
From Jared Zarin
I like how you have
at
to be the
JM
dad.
Zarin. Which current Thunder player would which current Thunder player would most likely punch Draymond at a party?
Good question.
Oh, that's a
I was
really
gonna
good
say
question.
Steven Adams, but he keeps his cool
No,
really
he
well.
does it. Yeah, he
It
would
feels
do
like it has to be Russ.
Yeah, he's a
I could
firecracker.
I could see Dre losing his cool a little bit and just being like, you know
With-
what, it's time to sock this
With
guy.
the whole headbutting thing with
Yeah.
I think he can
I mean,
do it.
maybe Schroeder.
That's what I was thinking.
We know he fights at
That's
parties.
it.
Felton,
That's it.
Felton's over there with a gun.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
Oh, I get
Gun
it.
charges, you
I
know?
get it. Remember Sebastian Telfair? Speaking of guns,
Wow, yeah.
man, what
What
an
about
era.
that guy?
What an era.
Or Agent Zero, maybe, you know. With
Well,
the,
he didn't play for the Thunder.
Well, that's, I mean, oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh,
You really
okay.
messed that one up.
Damn,
Next.
damn it.
From Luke Helms at Luke the Duke 4550. Would Steven Adams fighting Dennis Rodman result in the apocalypse?
Great question.
Absolutely, it
Great
would.
question that is rhetorical. Next.
Well, it's not. I think there's something to that because the Kim Jong guy, who's his buddy, would just start launching nukes.
That's true.
At New Zealand.
Oh, so
probably,
there's a
because
deeper
Steven-
layer
yeah,
to it. I
There's
get
some
it.
stuff going on back there.
That's a good point.
Fun fact. That's it.
Oh,
Okay. Wow. So
So
who's
who's
our
the winner?
So we're giving away the hard copy. We're not giving away the digital copy because we
So,
want you guys to have like a actual.
some-
We want you to have nice
something
things.
from
We
us.
want you to have
Right.
nice things.
And also we'll have new T-shirts by then, so we'll send you one
hope
of
to
those.
God.
What So what's the winner here? What'd you guys like? What stuck out?
Justin, you got one? Nope.
What was the first novel question again that we ended up liking? What was that?
The
From Alex Roy
the
and TTB.
autobiographies of KD and Russ. I lean towards the if you could have someone else's opinion during the Reggie Jackson thing.
I liked that one
I
a
like
lot.
that one.
Yeah, I
Wanna
like
do?
that
Let's
one.
just go that one. Let's make it easy.
Let's do that.
Who was
You
it?
win.
Leon Fowler. Right.
Was that him?
Follow me to Fowler.
Let me pull it back up.
Fowler done.
Let me put it back. Put it back
Just
up.
to-
on
There you
the
go. There's the
screen.
winner. Congrats, Leon.
Which Thunder player on the team would want to expound on what Steven Adams said? Boom.
We'll reach out to you. We'll get your info.
Very nice tweet.
Send
Thanks,
you some fun
Leon.
stuff. Let's bust through these notes and get
Hey,
out
I'm
of
gonna
here.
let's get to these notes. I'm gonna get to them, and we're getting to them now.
That's how you know Jason's not ready.
Every time.
Oh, he's just saying he was getting to it.
Notes.
How we've really fallen into the
Nailed it.
just the dumpster here. This is just
Is
yelling.
this just the off-season of the off-season notes?
We're just shouting at each other. Yes. Well, actually, these notes are there's some good stuff
There's
here.
so many
sorry.
notes.
Oh, you're talking about the notes. I thought you were talking about that.
Chris Mannix went on the Herd last week and basically said he thinks KD might look to return to OKC after the season. We had a lot of questions about this.
A lot of people asking about it.
I filtered those things out because I knew that we were going to get to it here. How would that make you feel? Like, because, okay, first of all, it would have to be a situation where KD would have to opt into his contract. Dog alert. KD would have to opt into his...
Dog alert.
He would have to opt into his contract, and it would pretty much have to be Steven Adams out the door. How would that make you feel? Would you be welcoming to Kevin Durant if he wanted to come back here?
I think it depends on the next year and what comes out, and if he can freaking find his internal center or some sort of degree of normalcy, like, then maybe. Like, if he has like a semi-normal,
Right.
I mean, we're off to a bad start, just to be honest.
It's not looking great.
The phony thing, and then him bantering with the people on Twitter, and then him getting mad at, what was that other guy that he got mad at on the podcast?
Oh,
CJ
no one
Miles?
knows. Hey, bud. He's in.
What's up, sir?
Welcome.
I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I don't either.
So
it's one of those things. It's like it's Kevin Durant.
I
So
think
it's-
obviously,
As a player, of course.
Yeah.
If you say no, you're dumb.
well, I think obviously everyone would rather win it without him.
right.
Right.
Because, wow, that'd be so much better. And that would be incredible.
What?
But if he happened to come back and Russ was accepting of him, I guess I could give
I
him
mean, if you think of a trio of Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Kevin Durant, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
I'm okay with
I think the
the
easy-
basketballness of it. I am
The
hurt.
easy way out is you win one this year, then he comes back next year.
There it is.
Although
That would be
just-
hilarious.
Would that not tarnish his reputation even more? Be like,
Oh, yeah.
wow, there he goes
just-
again.
He just did it.
There he goes again, just chasing it.
Who cares?
That's such a
his,
good
his
point.
next chapter again.
Hamadou,
Wow, Katie. I
Yeah.
see. I see you.
my next chapter, back where I came from.
He reused the same picture.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like the budget was low.
Hey, sir.
Hamadou Diallo will wear number 6 for the Thunder.
Mm.
What are some other number 6s?
Eric Maynor.
Derek Fisher, didn't he wear 6?
I think
Oh,
he did.
of course he did.
He did.
Eric
Had that
Maynard
toe on the
Fisher.
line the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. According to Chris Sheridan, Carmelo Anthony is trying to get his hands on a Hawks jersey with his name on
Oh,
it.
Jesus.
Despite the fact that he was traded to Atlanta, never suited up for the team.
5-day team.
Yeah, another shot Carmelo's taken, you know?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why? What's to
I
even
don't know,
remember?
so his kid like had that big thing of like all the jerseys that he'd ever played in. So now granted he's not going to play in this one, but kind
It's
of a
cool.
cool
He's
thing.
already not there.
It's kind of a
It's already
collector's
not there
item, like
already.
the 5 seconds of Carmelo Anthony in Atlanta
I
thing.
guess, dude.
Yeah.
ESPN
That's
2,
such a mellow thing to do.
ESPN 2 and ESPN Deportes will televise Saturday's NBA Africa game at 10 a.m. Central Time. Tune in if you're going to be there. If you're going to be there. If you're going to be...
It'd be impressive.
You know, you don't really even need to tune in if you're going to be there.
Yeah, that's true.
Just be there.
But anyways, new Thunder wing Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot will play for Team Africa, so you can kind of get a look at him, although it's not going to be a super highly competitive game. It'll be kind of interesting. Per Tim Bontemps, Paul George said he had 18 to 20 ounces of blood drained from his shooting elbow this offseason.
Oh, good.
Why
Get
did
that
you do
blood
that
out
for?
of there. It was bothering him, remember?
Too much blood?
Yeah, get it out of there. You don't need that stuff.
Did you see
Gets
where
in the way.
So News OK like did the thing, like they tweeted this out and was like, yeah, 18 to 20 ounces. That's basically a half a liter of a soda. It's like they make 20-ounce sodas. Just say it's a 20-ounce soda. Thanks, Trey.
Good point.
Nice.
Wait, I already read that one. The NBA has announced that MGM Resorts will be the league's first official gambling partner. I'm very excited
Oh,
to
you're
gamble.
so excited
$400
about this.
on Oklahoma City to win it all.
No, that's it. There's good odds there. It's like
I'm-
60 to 1 or 40 to
Ooh,
1 or
I'm
something.
also not
Let's
going to
do
waste
that.
$400.
Well,
You
still
never
though.
know. Not with that attitude,
well,
you won't.
No. Okay, let me put it this way. I'm not going to spend the $400
Oh,
up front.
there it is.
Is what I'm saying.
Definitely not
Yeah.
going to win that way.
That's
Thunder's,
hard.
Thunder's full preseason schedule has been announced. October 3rd versus the Pistons in OKC. October 5th at Minnesota. October 7th versus the Hawks and Trae Young, who we just talked to Jeff
Ooh.
Siegel, in Tulsa. And October 9th versus the Bucks and Giannis in OKC. So 2 games in OKC, 1 in Tulsa.
Does
one
he step on the line again?
Happy 25th birthday to Alex Abrinas.
Happy birthday.
Yep.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Per Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe, there's a good chance, quote, there's a good chance TNT's season opening slate will be Sixers versus Celtics and, wait for it, Thunder versus Warriors on October 16th.
Let's beat that ass.
By the way, that would be amazing. And you would imagine that would be on the road, right? They're going to give the
Yeah.
champs home court, I would
course.
assume.
Of course.
Last year, the opening night was, I believe, Celtics, Cavs, Rockets, Warriors, and that was the conference finals. They were clearly trying to predict it.
It's like it's almost
Interesting.
set up in advance.
Interesting. Per Royce Young, the Thunder are finalizing adding Bob Byer to Billy Donovan's coaching staff, replacing Adrian Griffin, who left to join the Raptors. Byer most recently was an assistant with the Pistons and formerly the head coach at Siena.
Big Bob Byer fan. Big
Love
Bob
him.
Byer fan.
He's great at coach. He's a good coach.
Oh,
Good
get to
coach.
know him.
Good guy.
Do some Googling.
I tell you what, his X's and O's.
Yeah,
I tell you what.
on point.
He's a fundamentals guy.
He can draw. On a whiteboard? Oh my God. Now, chalkboard
Knows
was a
how to
little out of his
he
area.
knows
That's
how to
not
erase
really his
really
thing.
well.
This is stupid.
He's not a chalkboard guy.
This is dumb.
I was going to follow you down that road.
It was fun while we've already gone so over time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can watch these episodes and more of our features live and on demand over at YouTube. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, anywhere that has podcasts. We are there. You can find us on OKCThunderheads.com, although I will say that we have some updating to do this summer.
We sure do.
We will be back next week with a new one. Till then, and as always, Thunder up.